On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, the Oklahoma City Thunder make a historic comeback against the Memphis Grizzlies in Game 3 to take an insurmountable 3-0 lead in the FedEx Forum. Chet Holmgren comes to life in the first half. The second half, I should say, SGA bounces back in the first quarter but tails off near the end, and Alex Caruso was everywhere all at once, all the time.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. On today's show, of course, we're talking about the historic comeback from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Today's show brought to you by Monarch Money. Monarch Money, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Wow, what a game this was. What a game this was. Still inside the bowels of the FedEx Forum arena here in the press conference room, talking to you about this comeback win. It was a game that truly can be summarized in a tale of two halves, because this Thunder team looked like a shell of itself in the first half. It was the inverse of the first two games that we've seen. And that's kind of why we'll stick to the second half, only because the first half is so easily explained. It's exactly what you saw Memphis go through in game 1 and 2. The Thunder turned the ball over too much. The Thunder lost the rebounding battle. The Thunder couldn't hit water out of a boat offensively. The Thunder gave up some easy shots. The Memphis Grizzlies had good shot variance, and Memphis did a good job of protecting the basketball. They did a great job of decision-making in that first half. It's the best half of basketball they've played all series long. That goes without saying, given the fact that they led by 29 points in that first half and that they took a 26-point lead into halftime. But in the first half, things did feel different. Ja Morant was cooking until he unfortunately got hurt. We can talk about that later. But more so, the Grizzlies were able to have that offense that we've been talking about for a week now of quick decision-making, one pass to the corner, and they made their threes. I mean, Scottie Pippen Jr. in the second quarter set a season high for threes made in the game in the second quarter. That was the level of shot variance the Thunder were dealing with. And on the other side of that spectrum, Oklahoma City looked lethargic. Oklahoma City could not make shots. Oklahoma City was not taking care of the basketball, was not rebounding the ball, was not defending well. And they didn't have sustainable offense in terms of even generating quality looks, something that's been easy to come by in this series, partly easy to come by because of the turnovers and because of the transition, but even their half-court offense has been much easier than it was in the first half. And that's kind of the way the cookie crumbles, right? It's really hard to continue to beat down on teams, especially when the series shifts on the road. Role players typically play better at home. What you saw in this game was the Grizzlies role players played a lot better. The Thunder supporting cast in that first half did not play very well, and it grew this lead that felt like it was going to be too much to handle. It felt like Memphis did their job, and that Memphis threw the first punch, landed it, and we're going to be able to get a win in game 3 on their home court and show some of that pride that they were searching for. I still think that Memphis accomplished that, even though that they had a dreadful second half. But still, the Thunder were able to regroup. And this was a game where you never want to count the Thunder out, and because you've seen them have all these comeback wins even this season, but this core of guys have had comeback wins before. But it didn't feel right. Chet Holmgren had 1 point at halftime. You can go down the list of things that did not make sense after at intermission, and Luke Kennard bombing in that three kind of summarized it all. But to the Thunder's credit, they responded and they rallied, and I think that it was mainly getting back to their identity defensively. And a large part of that came with Ja Morant going out because he was really on fire. He was just toying with Oklahoma City at times to get to the rim. It's a different level of comfortability, a different level of confidence than even he has shown throughout this series. But also a part of that was just by simply bringing energy in the second half that they did not possess in the first half. And their defense was able to flip it on its head, right? We talked about how Memphis won the turnover battle for the majority of that first half and the entire first half. I mean, you just look at the first half box score, and OKC, they had 6 turnovers to the Grizzlies 3. I mean, they had double the Grizzlies turnovers. They were out-rebounded by 8. And the Thunder in the first half shot 40% from the floor, 22% from 3, and 68% from the free throw line, not even capitalizing at the charity stripe. On the flip side, Memphis shot 57%, 50%, and 75% in the first half. Then you waltz over to the second half, and it's a completely different game, where the Thunder only have 5 more turnovers in the second half, but Memphis has 13 turnovers in the second half. The rebounding disparity was OKC 24 rebounds to Memphis's 18. And the Thunder shot 50% from the floor. They made half their shots in the second half. They made 45% of their threes in the second half. They made 70% of their free throws in the second half. And the Grizzlies, down the stretch of this game, had more turnovers than they had made shots. The Grizzlies had more turnovers than they had made shots, as Memphis shot 25% from the floor in the second half. The entire second half saw 9 made field goals from the Memphis Grizzlies. 9. 15% from 3 and 10 for 10 at the free throw line. And they had, again, 13 turnovers in that second half. It was a completely different experience, and it can be summarized with even 2 players of Chet Holmgren having 1 point in the first half, then completely coming alive in the second half. Alex Caruso and what he did defensively in half number 2 cannot be understated. Alex Caruso was everywhere on the court. And he's going to get a lot of praise for what he did defensively. He had 4 steals and a block in the second half. 4 steals and a block in the second half. But he also had 5 points. And he was cleaning up possessions. He had the 2 rebounds. He had the putback after the Shai missed dunk. Alex Caruso just simply cleaned up and polished this game for OKC. So did Cason Wallace, who was able to be a just ferocious defender. As Alex Caruso put it, Cason Wallace gave Scottie Pippen, made Scottie Pippen's life, hell in the second half once Ja Morant went out, and Cason Wallace did just that. Everyone ratcheted up the intensity, and I think that that's something that is a feather in their cap of just the grit to battle back and the grit to get a win, where you're getting the second largest win in playoff history from a come from behind fashion, because this team hadn't been tested yet this playoffs, and that was a big test. That was a massive test here in the FedEx Forum. Massive test, because it's human nature in a way to say, you've beaten this team, swept them uncompetitively in the 4 regular season games, 2 straight uncompetitive games to go up 2-0. You drop this game, okay, you get the car back on the road Saturday, and then you win the series on Monday in OKC. And it kind of would have been easy at halftime to just kind of pack it in a little bit. But to this Thunder team's credit, they did not. And they still have their sights set on a sweep. And this could end up being the one game, right? New Orleans in a non-competitive series had the one game. Theirs happened to be in game 1. And so it feels jarring that this happened in game 3. But you got to put yourself back in the shoes of that New Orleans series. That New Orleans series was uncompetitive. The Pelicans never had a chance to win this series. That they never had a chance to upset the Thunder. But game 1, they were a CJ McCollum shot away from getting a win. Memphis, dead on arrival in the first round. But they're going to have this game 3 to hold on to as a memento of a close game in this series. And the Thunder were able to will themselves to a win. And I know that Memphis struggled on the stretch. We just talked about how they had more turnovers than made buckets. But even after the Thunder tied this game, Memphis, in the blink of an eye, gets back up by 6. And they still couldn't nurse that lead. And more importantly, long-term wise, there was no panic from Oklahoma City. And there was trust from Oklahoma City. Because you look at this fourth quarter, and we're going to talk about this on the other side, but SGA takes 7 fourth quarter shot attempts. And Chet took 4. Like, they weren't just forcing the issue with their superstar no matter what. Like, they still rode the hot hand, and they still let these guys play just in a flow state, right? They didn't panic down the stretch and just asked their superstar to bail them out. They understood who had the hot hand, and they were able to adjust accordingly and just work for good shots. And then primarily in the fourth quarter, they just suffocated Memphis and got back to their identity as a defense, because that's what this whole thing is built on. Shai has been spectacular. Shai will be spectacular in the future this postseason, just like he was last postseason. And he was the MVP of this league. I mean, soon it will be announced that he's the MVP, I'm sure. But for this team to reach their ultimate goal, they have to play defense the way that they played in the first two games and the second half of this game. Defense is their superpower, simply put, as the Thunder said post-game. Coming up, let's dive into some individual performances as we kind of laid the land for what was a very messy game and a very messy first segment. But first, I want to say right now, better good friends over at Monarch Money. Go check out Monarch Money today, because if you've ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. It's an all-in-one convenience app for you. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch Money and check your finances, track your spending, and build your long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. The Oklahoma City Thunder get this win, 114-108. They won the rebounding battle at the end of the game, 43-41. They won the turnover battle when it's all said and done, 16-11. And they end up shooting better from the floor and from three by negligible percentages. But the Achilles heel for this team, in this game, could have been the free throw percentage. They only made 69% of their free throws. Not very nice for the outcome of this one, but they have to capitalize. Some of that was just, Jalen Williams, right? Like Jalen Williams did a great job of getting to the free throw line by being relentless and being forceful downhill. But he splits the difference in one set of free throws. He goes 0 for 2 in another set of free throws. That drags your percentages down a bit. OKC actually lost points in the paint tonight. They also lost second chance points tonight and fast break points tonight. First time all series that those things have happened, and they were still able to come away with a win despite the Scottie Pippen Jr. game, where he was fantastic from the word go. Clearly, there is shot variance involved when he makes 6 three-pointers on 10 attempts. But he also got to the line for 6 free throw attempts. He also was really good in terms of a connective playmaker whenever Ja Morant was in the game. Life gets harder without Ja Morant, clearly, and so that's where the issues came, where he ends up with 5 turnovers against those 5 assists. But I thought that Scottie Pippen Jr. was good. Santi Aldama was really good in this game. And had Memphis won this game, you're talking about their supporting cast finally showing up, which is what they did tonight. Jaren Jackson Jr. had some very tough buckets, and that spin cycle finish from him in the fourth quarter could have very well been an exclamation point, but instead OKC spoils the night because of Chet Holmgren. 24 points tonight, and 23 of them came in the second half. And him talking about it post-game was just, simply put, credit to Mark for sticking with him and for drawing up the first play out of halftime for a guy who has 1 point. And those are the little things. And I think that you can use that information for as deep or as shallow as you want. I choose to kind of go deeper. To me, drawing up the first play out of halftime for Chet is symptomatic in a way of a deeper understanding of what this was going to require. This was going to require Chet as a guy who can really exploit mismatches against Memphis getting going, who's been such a steadying and such a really good player in the first 2 games. You needed him to get right in the second half, because that was along with the lack of energy and defense, that was another major factor, is how disinvolved that Chet Holmgren was in the first half. And I wonder if Mark looks at the situation that you find yourself in, down 25 points, a margin, or 26 points, a margin that he called, at times you feel like it's unobtainable. I wonder if he looked at that and said, well, what do we have to lose? In terms of drawing up the first play. If Chet misses this one, it's just another miss in a line of misses in a game 3. If he makes this, though, and it turns him around, that's going to be what propels us to getting the win. That's how it played out. I wonder if that was the thought process behind it, because, again, the biggest difference was I thought that Shai in the first quarter looked the most like himself he's ever looked this series. I thought that J-Dub was excellent tonight, just like he was in game 1 and game 2. The missing piece of that was Chet Holmgren, and it was Chet Holmgren not getting going. And in the second half, he certainly did. How crazy is it that Chet Holmgren had 1 point in the first half, and in the second half, he has 26, but yet he shot 50% from the floor and 50% from 3 and 3 for 4 from the free throw line, because in that first half, he went 0 for 4, and he was able to overcome that and still shoot high efficiency because he shot 66% in the second half from the floor in this game. And with Chet, look, you've almost had to manufacture high pressure moments in this series up until now, but this was a high pressure moment. This was something where you knew if you could come back, that would be a knockout punch for this Memphis team. And you don't expect Memphis to respond on Saturday night, Saturday afternoon, especially if Ja Morant sadly cannot play. And Chet hitting big threes late, and the guys tossing in triples in that second half, whenever the game was in the balance, that's another encouraging sign for the future and for expanding out what this Thunder team looks like. You really saw the best and worst versions of Oklahoma City all wrapped into one. And what makes this team so unique is they can play their worst version for half a basketball game. They can be the worst passable outcome for half of the 48-minute game, which, if my LPS math does not forsake me, is 24 minutes. And yet, they win a playoff game on the road. It's really impressive stuff from OKC, and especially from Chet Holmgren, who, another part just beyond the scoring, at halftime, Chet Holmgren had 3 rebounds. In the second half alone, he has 5 and gets more active on the glass and is able to be a plus 27 in that second half. And Jada was a plus 30 in that second half. So Chet really showed it tonight. And I thought that, he does not have the counting stats to show for this, but I thought that Chet, beyond the scoring, beyond the rebounding, where he almost got double-digit rebounds again tonight, he finishes with 8, was his presence on the back end of this defense in the second half, most importantly, whenever they got into foul trouble. Because the fact that Memphis could not just get the switch of Shai onto Jaren Jackson Jr. once Shai picked up 5 fouls, and they only got it one time, I believe, down the stretch of this game, is malpractice, in my opinion, but also a testament to the Thunder being able to clean things up around Shai and around any player who has foul trouble. So this is not a Shai specific point, but when one of your 5 guys who has to be on the floor has 5 fouls, naturally they can only do so much defensively, because you cannot risk having your superstar foul out of the game. And there was a couple situations where Memphis gets downhill, and it's Shai who has to kind of, not totally get out of the way, but obviously can't pursue it as aggressively as he'd like to if he was not in foul trouble. And Chet and Hartenstein did a good job of deterring things in the second half, and in the fourth quarter, especially Chet deterring things at their end that doesn't end up as a block, but it does force you to kick it out, and it does force you to get out of the painted area, which is where most fouls occur and is where the highest quality of shots happen. And Chet was able to do that. And then Caruso, as we shift over to Alex Caruso, this game is totally different if he does not get a deflection where you're trying to peel switch on the slot, and there's a wide open Grizzly in the corner, and Shai, again with 5 fouls, is going to have to try to make this looping rotation and close out hard. And we've seen Shai in playoff games close out hard and accidentally foul. And Caruso, with one deflection, gets you to reset defensively and saves you from giving Memphis a wide open triple. And I thought that was a really big deal, because Caruso all night showed you his active hands. I mean, he finishes with 1 block, 4 steals, and he was asked after the game by Nick Gallo, if the big brings the ball below his waist, do you feel like it should be your ball? And he said yes. And that's the way that he plays. That's really the way that he plays. He expects every ball to be his if you bring it within his vicinity. And more often than not, he's like the honey badger. He's going to go get it, and he's going to be able to find a way to create a possession for OKC, whether it be the steals, whether it be the deflections, whether it be his ability to dive on the floor, be the first one to the floor, which is a testament to his heart and his hustle, but also his athleticism, I think, to just be able to beat everybody to the floor. This is not some, 6-foot even guy that's going out there and getting to the floor first because he's closer to the ground. He's having to really explode down there in a way. We typically think of explosiveness as like verticality, but Caruso being the first one to the floor and always timing it and always getting the basketball and the presence of mind to call the timeouts to help you retain those possessions is a big deal. And so Caruso just did everything in the way of defense, and he just harassed and hounded and flustered and frustrated and just discombobulated the Memphis Grizzlies. You cannot say enough things about Alex Caruso, who is absolutely a 16-game player. This is a guy who helps you win a championship. This is a guy who helps you tie together your roster, and this is the time of year that you got him for. This is the situation that you got him for. And, I know that we typically think of rah-rah leadership as like the Disney movies where the best player comes in and starts banging on the lockers and giving these all-out heartfelt speeches. But Caruso talked about how his communication and his leadership to the guys was fairly simple of just, he tried to spin it as we have plenty of time, which they did. And then he tried at halftime, tell them, just get it to 12. Like, that's your first goal. Just get it to 12, get it to 11, get it to 10. And then from there, you can try to win the game. And that's what they did. Like, their goal was not to start pressing the issue in that second half and just take ill-advised threes and hope for the best. I mean, they end up with 20 3-point attempts in that second half, but they had 18 in the first half. Like, that's kind of just the way their offense flowed tonight. But it wasn't as though just every time to the floor they were just jacking up threes in the face of adversity. They created good looks off of it, and they just played within themselves, understanding the time, understanding the score, understanding the situation that they needed to accomplish to get this close at the end of the third. And they did that. At the end of the third quarter, you're looking at a 8-10 point game, and it feels a whole lot different than what you felt at intermission, and they were able to get over the hump afterward. And a credit to the Thunder for closing out that third quarter really strong, because you saw Shai and Chet, who are two of your best players, and Chet was your best player in this game in the second half when the game really started for OKC, and they start on the bench. That way they can start the fourth quarter to try to get you over the hump. And the Thunder kept the car on the road without those two guys and did what we've talked about. Like, it came in a different situation than what's happened throughout the year. Like, we typically think about staying afloat for this Thunder team as the start of the fourth quarter, but we've said it all season long. Can this secondary unit, whenever they get deployed, can they just even keep the game afloat? They don't have to extend the lead. They don't have to really chip into a deficit. Can they just maintain and let your best players get back in the game and run with it? And tonight, that's exactly what they did. And so each game of this series, you've been able to see in different variations the formula that it's going to take for this team to do what they want to do. And the fact that they're able to execute that, and you're not having to wonder or ponder or question if that's a possibility or if that can happen, I think is a really, really encouraging sign for the long-term growth of this team and the long-term prospect of this team. Coming up, let's talk SGA, let's talk J-Dub, let's talk the rest of this Thunder roster. We're back on Locked On Thunder, on the Locked On Thunder podcast, your team every day. Here, talking Thunder historic comeback win over the Memphis Grizzlies. And SGA, he ends up with 31 points on 38% shooting from the floor, 28% shooting from beyond the arc, 9 for 9 from the free throw line, and he has 4 rebounds to go at 8 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, and 3 turnovers. But when you look at this game and break it up into like segments, that first quarter, I mean, that was Shai, 12 points on 55% shooting, getting to his spots and hitting tough mid-range jumpers. And then he kind of faded as a scorer in the sense of the shots just stopped going in. But he hit obviously some timely ones. That step back three was huge down the stretch of this game for Shai. I really, I'm going to write about this for Friday on Thunder on SI, so make sure you tune in tomorrow at some point for that. But I think that a lot of the times he's getting the looks he wants. They're just not going in the bottom of the net. And that's not the results you want, but it's also not a bad process from SGA to get to these poor stat lines or outlier stat lines. It's so interesting because the Grizzlies, the Grizzlies are a team that in the regular season, he averaged his 5th most points per game against. And last postseason, he had no trouble scoring. And this postseason, you're seeing through 3 games a blip in the sense of he had 31 points, but you're seeing a dip in his efficiency. the efficiency is going to come around. A lot of the efficiency you can point to him getting to the mid-range area where he's made a living this season, and the ball not bouncing in. He missed that breakaway opportunity, which hurts, and like it all has kind of piled on top of itself. I don't necessarily believe that Memphis has cracked some code of like how to stop SGA. Isaiah Joe deserves a lot of credit, though. 10 points off the bench, along with Caruso having 10 points off the bench. And he shot 80% from the floor, 4 for 5, 2 for 3 from 3, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 1 steal from him. His active hands really came in handy on the defensive end for this Thunder team. And when you look at the rest of this roster, they tried a lot of guys, right? They tried AJ Mitchell for a segment of this game. They tried Jay Will. They tried Wiggins, but they end up found their top guys where you're seeing just the minutes played in this game. Of the starting lineup of Shai, Dort, Hartenstein, Chet, J-Dub, and then you're saying Joe, Kaysen, and Caruso. Like those are your main guys for this Thunder team, and then the rest of them you can sprinkle in depending on what the game is requiring. Tonight's game required defense. Like you had to get sparked defensively, and their better defenders played the most minutes in this game. Now let's talk Ja Morant and the injury. It's completely unfortunate, but also it's being talked about at least early on. We'll see what the reaction is to Friday, but it's being talked about in the complete wrong tone. Sometimes you don't have to pick a side, and sometimes there is no side. The side is just the common ground of it's an unlucky play, and I hate that for Memphis. I hate that it happened, but it's a fast break where he's closing out extremely hard. Lou Dort is trying to do a chase down block. Then the ball gets thrown behind him. He turns and he clearly slips. Like it's a cartoonish slip because it's so obvious that he slipped, and then it just so happened to hang up Ja Morant, and he falls really hard. And him, Dort, J-Dub, and Shai all go to Ja at the free throw line, and they dap up. And Ja, of course, cannot return to this game with a hip injury. But it was completely an innocent play. It wasn't by no means a dirty play or by no means something to get up in arms about. It's just one of those things that happens in the course of a basketball game that oftentimes are unavoidable. Like oftentimes it's not stemming from some just egregious offense to the sport or to your fellow players or some dirty play. This is just basketball, and it's the tough reality of a contact sport. But hopefully Ja Morant is able to bounce back. He was ruled out pretty quickly in the sense of when he left after the free throws, he took his jersey off and went to the tunnel and never emerged from there. And Chris Vernon tweeted out that he was on crutches. So it clearly doesn't seem all that promising for Saturday, but hopefully somehow Ja Morant is able to play Saturday or of course can at least bounce back fairly quickly just in life with a hip injury. Hip injuries, of course, suck. Like every injury sucks, but especially mobility injuries suck. So, but Ja Morant, to his credit, before the injury, in 15 minutes, he had 15 points, and he was really stellar. And if that's the lasting memory of this playoffs for Ja Morant is like what could have been had he had a full game to play against this Thunder team, tip your cap to Ja Morant for his ability to problem solve, because this was not the Ja Morant that you saw in OKC. He had a very different level of understanding of how to attack this Thunder defense. Part of that comes from the effort the Thunder put out, but a majority of it came from just his crisp handles. Like his handles were a lot tighter in this game, and he was able to dance around with the point of attack defenders in this game and not turn the ball over a single time tonight. And his decision making, where he gets out to 5 assists in 15 minutes on top of 15 points in 15 minutes. That's really impressive stuff from Ja Morant, really encouraging stuff from Ja Morant. But the Thunder were able to get this insane come from behind win against the Memphis Grizzlies. It's really a dizzying win because I can record this podcast 3 times in a row and still not feel like we hit on everything, covered everything, talked about everything, which is why we'll probably have a bonus podcast coming up. So whatever you think I missed, you can drop it below in the comment section so we can get to it in future episodes. But what a moment for this Thunder team. What a reward for this Thunder team for what's been a historic season and what's been a record-breaking season, that they were able to rewrite history yet again as such a young team. I thought that the Thunder were forced to play in foul trouble a lot and handled it pretty well. Jay Will had to come in for iHeart whenever he had 3 fouls early in this game. We talked about Shai's foul trouble, but they navigated that the best you can. But ultimately, OKC gets the win, and they just flipped the script on the Grizzlies, who tried to flip the switch on them. It was kind of like playing an Uno game, and someone hit you with a reverse, then you put it right back to them. That's exactly what happened in Game 3. Like, Memphis used the Thunder's formula, then the Thunder used their own formula in the second half. But will this series be closed out Saturday here in the FedEx Forum? We'll find out together, and we'll have another podcast from FedEx before returning home to OKC on Saturday. So until then, be good and be good to one another.